A lot of motorcycle enthusiasts consider the 70s to be the golden era for Kawasaki because they made some of the best motorcycles in that time period. Starting with the H2, it was such a hit that even in 2015, Kawasaki, to chase that high again, they went back to the drawing board and redesigned the H2 for the market, and they still make it to this day. And the other bike that they made in the 70s that was such a huge hit was the Z1, which the bike that's in front of us is a tribute to. This is what we're gonna be doing today. We're gonna go wheel to wheel and everything in between on this 2024 Z900RS SE, and we're gonna see what they have kept the same and what they have changed compared to the original bike. Then we're gonna get on it, go out there, ride it, and then I'm gonna quantify my thoughts and give this a retro bike that I hear a lot about, my Emmy score. Back in the early 70s, Kawasaki began importing the Z1 into the United States, and it became a huge hit. Only a couple years later, Kawasaki USA was like, why are we importing this bike? Why don't we start assembling and making them here right in the US? And that's what they did. In 1976, they rolled out the KZ900, which was essentially the same as the Z1, almost perfectly replication of the Z1, except the Z1s are a little more sought after than the KZ900s because the Z1s were made in Japan, imported to the US, but the KZ900 was made in the US. Other than that, they didn't have any differences. Obviously, the color changed over the years, but the color that's on this bike, this black with yellow strips, is almost a replication and a tribute to the original Z1, not the KZ900, but the Z1, the imported version. Now let's talk about the beating heart of this 2024 Z900RS SE, which is this inline 4-cylinder 948cc engine that puts about 100 horsepower at the crank and about 73 pound-feet of torque, which are healthy numbers considering this bike is really not that heavy. Now, one thing to note about this engine is that this is a Z900RS. You also have the Z900, not the RS version, which is that modern naked bike. They both should have the same engine, right? If I was a manufacturer and I was cutting corners, I would be like, okay, throw the same engine on both Z900s. Except Kawasaki didn't do that. Since this bike is a retro bike, Kawasaki has designed the outer shell of this engine to look like an air-cooled engine similar to the original Z1, which I'm sure added tremendous amount of additional machining and work to be done to make this bike different than the other Z900, which is something you find only in manufacturers that care about the bikes they make, like Kawasaki. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the paint job on this bike is supposed to be a tribute to the original Z1, this yellow on black, both on the tank and the tailpiece. What else is a tribute here is the frame on this bike. You can see this hollow steel tubular trellis frame painted this shiny black, which is the style of frame that was on the Z1, the original one. What is not a tribute to the original Z1 had vertical spring shocks. This one has a horizontal all-in shock, which is, I think, an overkill for a retro bike like that. I've seen almost the same kind of shock on the H2, which is a $35,000 motorcycle. You see it on this $14,000 bike, but I bet it's gonna feel really good when we are out there riding this bike. You can also see the knob here, preload knob on this bike. It's placed here for adjustments on the fly, which is a really unique touch on a retro bike. These are usually on racetrack oriented bikes, but here it is. Kawasaki never cuts corners, never gives you cheap stuff. It's here on a $14,000 bike, and I appreciate that. Now let's move up here to the front. A couple of things to note. First of all, you have the upgraded shocks here, these inverted gold colors to match the yellowness of this motorcycle. All around this bike, you have yellow from the all-in shock and the paint work on this bike. So they have tried their best to match the color of the fork also to the rest of the bike. So that's what you get here. You also have this round bulbous headlight here to match the original design of the Z1, except the intricate design in this this one kind of goes against the retro look. I wish they had cut back on the amount of design and busyness that has gone into the design of this headlight. I wish it was just left a hollow bulb and a single light at the center of it, but I guess new regulations, you have to have all kinds of day running lights, high beam, low beam, all kinds of lights, makes it difficult to make it not cluttered looking. What they didn't model after the original Z1 are the turn signals. They are these modern looking triangular turn signals with clear coverings on them. I wish they had just stuck with the round original look of the turn signals that were on the Z1 with those amber covers that's on them instead of this clear one. But I mean, if you really want it to look like that, you can just switch out the turn signals. What else is modeled after the original Z1? Well, the dashboard. The odometer and the speedometer are these two round bulbous units, chrome lined, similar to the original Z1, and they're here, except you have some touch of modernity here. You have this screen in the middle. It's not a TFT screen or anything. It's not multicolored, just one color in it, but it really shows you very good information. It has a segmented fuel gauge on it, which I appreciate. It also has estimated miles to empty tank, which I also really appreciate. And this screen is the one you're going to be using to adjust your traction control. You can choose from off, 1 or 2, 3 levels of traction control, and you always have the ABS on, and that's about it as far as technologies go on this bike. What else is a tribute to the original Z1, you may ask, is the tail light. It's also designed in that round ovalish looking shape that the original Z1 had. You see it also here. Generally in the 70s, Kawasaki's had round tail lights and Hondas had rectangular tail lights. This taillight, however, has a little bit of touch of modernity to it because it is LED. What's not LED are the turn signals. Both front and rear turn signals are just non-LED light bulbs in them. They gradually come on and they gradually die out, which is fine actually. On other Kawasaki's more expensive ones and other non-retro styling motorcycles, I do complain about Kawasaki using non-LED lights. On this one, I welcome it because obviously the original Z1 didn't have LED lights, so nor does this one. But again, the same complaint back here as I had up front. I wish they had made the shape of the turn signals similar to the original Z1, which were round turn signals, but they didn't. And with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and go ride this thing. But before we do that, a big thank you to Bellevue Motorsports, first of all, for securing one of these down. They are hard to find, so if you're looking for something like this, do check out the link in the description of the video before this one sells out. I got this rare opportunity to catch this bike between it showing up on the showroom floor and somebody buying it, so I could review it. It has 0 miles right now. I think it has like 0.7 miles now that I wrote it here to review it, but essentially it's a 0-mile bike. Do check it out in the link in the description section of this video, and if you like it, go buy it. Whoa. 1.1 mile on this bike. Whoa. Person's not even looking, I guess. Whoa! Whoa! Oh my god! Holy moly! Why? Why is it so fast? Oh my god! This is seriously almost as crazy as a ZX6R. Jeez! Oh my god! That was phenomenal. The amount of power this bike packs, I mean, it's got 70 some pounds-feet of torque, so I guess it's pretty powerful, but wow, when you actually put it to test, geez, that is fast. I love the Z here on the tank. I don't know if that's a tribute to the original one or not. I'll look up the picture of the old one and throw it on the screen if it has the same Z on its gas tank. Both brake and clutch levers are adjustable. So you don't have to get aftermarket adjustable ones, they come adjustable. The clutch is cable clutch. You obviously don't have the hydraulic fluid here, which makes sense. The original one didn't have it either. It's kind of a good thing to make retro bikes because you simply can just go cheaper, not put a lot of options and amenities on it, and just call it, oh, it's retro, it's supposed to be like the original one, which had nothing. And you would be right, you know. But yeah, this doesn't have a hydraulic clutch. It has a regular cable clutch, but it works really well. It's not that hard to pull. There it is, the exposed radiator. I love that look of the feeling of all the mechanisms of the bike just sticking out there, unlike, you know, fully faired bikes that everything is hidden under some plastic. This one, it's showing its guts and it's proud of it. Whoa, it sounds really good. Look at the chrome handlebar on it. That, I bet, also is a tribute to the original Z1 and the way it looked. This one is just simple. Everything is round, everything is shiny. Really takes you back. It's like a time machine. But obviously you get all of that with modern technology, with ABS, with a lot of safety mechanisms built into it, slipper clutch, stuff like that to make your commute even better. Yet it feels like you have traveled in time. And now on to the Emmy score for the 2024 Kawasaki Z900RS SE, which for the sake of scoring, I am going to consider it a naked bike. In the commuter category and in the riding comfort, the Z900RS's riding position is similar to other naked bikes, upright and comfortable, and the seat is pretty soft. There is no windshield to block any air, which is in line with the spirit of the original Z900, but that also means you will feel some wind hit you as you ride around. The arms are slightly below chest level, but it's still a very upright position. The Z900RS gets a 7 out of 10 in riding comfort. In the fuel range / features, the Z900RS has a 4.5 gallon tank and gets about 45 to 50 miles per gallon, which is a bit above average. In comparison, the 2024 Yamaha XSR 900, which is also Yamaha's retro bike, has a 3.5 gallon tank and gets about the same gas mileage, which would come second to the Kawasaki. The Z900RS has a nicely laid out segmented fuel gauge on the screen and estimated miles to an empty tank. This earns the Z900RS SE a 10 out of 10 in the fuel range / features. As far as the commute-specific tech goes, the Z900RS SE does not offer much other than traction control and ABS, but anything more than that, and you no longer have a bike that resembles a 70s bike. That's a decision you need to make as the potential owner of this bike, whether you can put up with not having cruise control, heated grips, phone connectivity, TFT screen, and so on and so forth. This earns the Z900RS SE a 4 out of 10 in the commute-specific tech and features. In the storage category, the Z900RS SE has no storage similar to any other naked bike. Even under the seat, there is just enough room to put your registration and nothing more. The Z900RS SE earns a 1 out of 10 in the storage category. A good commuter bike should be cost-effective, reliable, and have a strong dealership network. The Z900RS SE I reviewed, being an ABS model, costs $14,200 and has no major issues found through my search in the forums or the recall sheet. Kawasaki has over 1,000 dealers across the US, which creates an enormous network of dealer support around you. The Z900RS SE gets 9 out of 10 in affordability, reliability, and dealer support, for an overall score of 31 out of 50 for the commuter category. Now on to the performance / dope factor category. In the race riding position category, the Z900RS SE has a fairly upright riding position with raised handlebars. Without any type of windscreen in front of you, you will be battling the wind on the track. It gets a 2 out of 10 in the race riding position. For the horsepower slash torque figures, the torque on this bike is 73 pounds-feet and has around 100 horsepower to the rear wheel for an average value of 86.5, earning the Z900RS SE a 4 out of 10. As for the weight, the Z900RS SE weighs close to 472 pounds, which is a 6 out of 10 in the weight category. Regarding the racetrack-oriented ride race features, on the Z900RS SE you have ABS, traction control, Brembo brakes, and Öhlins rear shock. It earns an 8 out of 10. As for the design choices and marketplace, the 2024 Kawasaki Z900RS SE does a good job of replicating the bike it is trying to be a retro version of. I wish Kawasaki had included all the color variations that were available on the original Z1900, but for 2024 you only get the black on yellow livery. It also comes only with the ABS, which I don't see a problem with. ABS should be standard on all motorcycles, but you can't get a non-ABS version of this bike and you can't turn it off. It has a monochromic screen instead of a TFT screen and halogen bulbs that all give it an outdated look, which in this particular case is fully intended, so I won't deduct a score. I can't complain about the fit and finish quality because it is a Kawasaki after all, so it comes with a high standard of build. As for brand status, Kawasaki does carry a bit of an economical connotation to it, as it's often associated with bikes at average price points and is definitely in a bit of a lower league than Italian brands. All considered together, the Z900RS SE earns a 4 out of 10 for the overall design and marketplace. This gives the Z900RS SE a total score of 24 out of 50 in the performance/dope factor category. And it sits here on the list of other naked bikes I have reviewed so far. Other manufacturers like Yamaha have tried retro-style motorcycles, but Kawasaki's faithfulness to the design features of the original bike really made this bike one of the best retro bikes I have come across. I always thought it's my ex that's so good at digging up the past, but it turns out Kawasaki engineers are even better at it with the way they revive their old bikes.